Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon for those who joined us um, here for the Lab D, both online and in person. It's a pleasure to have you here and to do this 75 minutes discussion on something which is actually extremely important, which is the link between education and mental health and psychosocial support, the entire aspect of protection in education. I will introduce my colleagues here who are joining us, some from, actually both of you from pretty far away. So I'm just getting your role right. So we have Relinde Reifers, the Senior Technical Expert on MHPSS for Save the Children in the Netherlands. We also have Patricia Landines-Gonzalez, Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Specialist on Global Education Practice with UNICEF. We have also, I think, online, we have Fidias Moufan, Protection and Child Rights Specialist Program Director for SAPI Belgium. And we also have Rantia Sabah, Mental Health and Psychosocial Support MHPSS Officer at Enabel Palestine, based in East Jerusalem. But before we start the panel, I wanted to introduce you to Paola Retaghi. She's a very close friend and former colleagues of mine. So very good to see you, Paola, on the screen. Paola is the Chief of Education at the UNICEF State of Palestine office, in charge of education both on the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and in the Gaza Strip. And Paola, if you allow me, I would like to give you the floor for, I would say, an initial introduction from your side on this panel discussion. Paola, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Very happy to see you again. And thank you very much, colleagues, for giving me this opportunity today to be with you and just to introduce the UNICEF intervention in the Gaza Strip through the BTI campaign that we are implementing since the end of January 2026, sorry, already 1 year ahead. I have shared the PowerPoint, so maybe we can, voila, perfect. Just waiting for the document to come. And I wanted just to give you a brief overview of the current situation in the Gaza Strip for education, and then I will hand over to Patricia for the MHPSS component. Why education along with MHPSS? Because MHPSS is one important pillar of the integrated approach we are utilizing in the Gaza Strip to provide mental health and psychosocial support along with social-emotional learning to the children who have been, all of them, traumatized because of the war. So in a nutshell, the figures. We have the 97% of the school buildings in Gaza Strip that have been damaged or completely destroyed, and the remaining 3% is currently sheltering the IDPs. We have 700,000 children who lost the school year since October 7, 2023, so 2 consecutive school years, even though UNICEF provided and is still providing a non-formal education through in-person modality. And this was happening also during the 2 years of war. Unfortunately and tragically, during the war, around 800 teachers have been killed and more than 19,000 school children have been killed. But currently we have 450,000 children receiving formal and non-formal education through the face-to-face modality that we are implementing along with the Minister of Education. I'm very happy that the Deputy Minister, His Excellency Dr. Nafier, could manage to be there in person with you. And we have also 298,000 students attending online And the main issue about the learning centers that we have established so far, they are more than 624, is that the so-called yellow and orange lines are keeping moving. So it means that the territory available in Gaza is shrinking, and we have some learning centers that are falling between the two lines, for which we have to put in place a safety mechanism and measures in order to ensure that children are protected. Of course, we are seeing a negative coping mechanism like child labor, like early marriage, teacher absentees because the teachers are not paid, and UNICEF is providing with monthly incentives to them. But the main negative coping mechanism is everything related to the mental health and psychosocial support. In the next slide, I simply put as a reminder the neutrality of education, so the school is not a target, and the same it applies for the learning centers. So we need to protect them, and every year I have to report under the resolution 1612 the monitoring and reporting mechanism to the Secretary General all the attacks against schools, not only in Gaza, of course, but also in the West Bank, where the situation is dire and unfortunately worsening on a daily basis. Now let's go back to Gaza. So let's see which are the main challenges in our emergency response. In the next slide, please. What we have is that there is a very challenging operating environment and limited humanitarian zone. As I was saying, the orange and yellow line are keeping moving, so the space available is shrinking. On top of this, there is the big challenge linked to the presence of trouble. Almost nothing has been removed. Really it's difficult to identify spaces where we can set up the learning centers. That's why our learning centers are operating on a double shift every day for 9 hours per week for each shift on the 4 core subjects, Arabic, mathematics, science, and English. And then we have 4.5 hours for the MHPSS and the social emotional learning. It's difficult also for the learning centers to have access to water, and for the children also to the school feeding. And the sister agency, WFP, is provided high energy district to all the children regularly attending our learning centers, but of course that's not enough for them because they really need to receive proper meals. There are challenges in procurement and importing, so the commercial goods when entering are significantly taxed. About UNICEF, for 27 months we have not been able to make the educational supplies entering, because of course a child going to school, attending the school, is a future person able to think. And this is an enormous risk. So everything related to education, including the curriculum, of course, is considered highly political. That's why our supplies were constantly rejected, even the first 2 months after the ceasefire. Only from January we have the school in a carton, the recreational kits, and the ETD kits, the kits for the youngest children entering, but really they are like drops in the ocean. Other challenges are linked to the restriction of movements and the lack of fuel in those needed for the supply distribution, and of course for the monitoring and evaluations for the field visits. And there were also different approaches to the educational response across the Gaza Strip. The education cluster, which is the main body coordinating all the actors intervening in the education sector, is doing its best to ensure that there is harmonization among the educational response, but of course we are still a little bit far from this. We have 3 priority settings in Gaza. And these are directly coming from the Back to Learning campaign that, as I was saying before, we launched at the end of January. aiming at targeting the 700,000 children, so all the children between the age of 5 and 18 in the street. As UNICEF, we have a target of the 50%, around 336,000 children. So the first priority is to provide for these children from grade KG2 for the kindergarten last year to grade 12, so the children 18 years old, with a space of and learning equipment in classrooms or in permanent structures, with the called high performance stands, with secure well and protected environment and wash facilities. We have an holistic approach, an inclusive approach with wash colleagues, with child protection colleagues, with health and nutrition. So education is really the entry point, and the learning centers are the entry point to provide to the children all the services they need in order to heal, learn, and grow. The second priority is, of course, to enhance the quality of learning through targeted programming, and we have developed with Cambridge an accelerated learning program that we are going to start piloting in the coming weeks. And particularly also providing trainings to teachers on mental health and psychosocial support and social-emotional learning. And the third priority is the provision of these holistic services I was referring before, including water, school feeding, well-being, gender responsive, but most important, inclusion. So all the children, including the children with disability, must go to school. The main issue was the fact that the children were for more than 2 years without receiving proper education. So UNICEF, along with the Ministry of Education and the Education Cluster, launched the Back to Learning campaign, which is a principled approach to quality and inclusive learning and healing for every child in Gaza. The Back to Learning is based on 5 approaches. The first is the right to quality and inclusive education. The second one is the whole of system view. The third one is the shared responsibility and accountability. Then we have the financial management and the due diligence. I think you need to move to the next slide. Sorry. And the feedback cycle. So all these approaches are interlinked in order really to ensure that we have a high level of back to learning and healing in Gaza principles. Everything is implemented through 3 interlinked strategies. If you can go ahead with the slides, please. Where we have the first strategy aimed at again, almost there. Another 2. The next one, and then the next one. The next one again. Okay, here you are. So the first strategy is to expand the access in order to reach every child with quality and inclusive in-person learning. The second strategy is providing quality and inclusive intervention, multifactorial learning centers, which improve the learning and healing outcomes. And here I would like to underline particularly point number 3, which is the inclusion and the well-being to support learning and healing, including through the MHPSS support, the mental health and psychosocial support, the disability support. We have conducted disability screening for around 7,000 children, and of course we could measure only hearing and visual impairment. Another point to be considered is that the assistive devices are not yet allowed to enter, at least under education. We go along with the colleagues working on health, so either the UNICEF Health and Nutrition section, either WHO, otherwise the assistive devices cannot enter. And through the MHPSS, of course, children go with the recreational activities which are really meant to support children in recovering in the trauma. And the third strategy is the entire governance and accountability of the system. And we are setting up with the Ministry of Education a governance mechanism. We have already supported the Ministry of Education in Gaza in preparing and developing the so-called e-service system, where all the HR and learning management information are included, registered and recorded, including also the number of children and the regular attendance. So it's a way for us really to monitor the attendance, but also to give to the communities through the accountability of affected population concept, to give the possibility for them to express also their concerns and their complaints. In the next slide, just simply to mention that at the center of the multi-sectoral approach, there is this laser focus on the mental health and psychosocial support. What I can say is that our child protection colleagues are providing services to children according to level 1, level 2, and level 3, while for the level 4, which is the more specialized, requiring really the child to be referred to psychiatrists or in any case to specialized services, is done by WHO. In the next slide, just the total number of children. As I was mentioning before, we are now, as of yesterday night, at 415,000 children. UNICEF, with the Ministry of Education, the 340 learning centers across the strip, is supporting already 260,000 children. And in all the learning centers, we have children on waiting list. So we have thousands of children waiting really for being enrolled. And when we conducted a survey among the families, the families were not asking for food, for money, or for any service. The first thing all the families were mentioning was provide access to education to our children. Under the education cluster, we have another 155,000 children attending the partners' temporary learning spaces. Just to give you an idea, on the next slide, on the cost, capital cost and operational cost per child per year, per school year, so 2 semesters, the cost is 281 USD, everything included. So it's not an ambitious cost, it's not that high, but of course, it's not that easy also to find donors willing and available to fund the Back to Learning campaign. We have, we can see in the next slide, a clear advocacy asks, because of course we need to remind that the children have the right to education, the teachers have to teach, and we need also to take into consideration the new directions and innovation. So these are the 3 key themes that can provide the basis of advocacy for us. And through our advocacy, we specifically aim to deliver the message to the political leaders, to the donors, to the teachers that are supported and motivated to teach, including, of course, the focus on their mental health and well-being, because we don't have to consider only the children as traumatized. Also, the teachers and the adults, the parents or the caregivers are at the same time traumatized because they were all living in the same situation during the war, and also now with the, let's say, so-called ceasefire, because it's not really effective as a ceasefire. The attacks in Gaza continue. And the third target are the children, the parents, and the community and the civil society. The urgent results are to continue with expanding the number of learning centers, to continue with increasing the number of children accessing the learning centers or the temporary learning spaces, and to continue monitoring the attendance. And then if we go to the last slide, three key asks from our side. The first one is the urgent need for essential teaching and learning material to continue entering Gaza. I have myself procured 25,500 schooling carton, and if we are able to make them entering, I will be able to cover 1,020,000 children in Gaza, so more than the current number of children, almost organizing a double distribution. There are urgent actions needed to remove the rubble from the destroyed buildings and to free the space for the temporary learning spaces of the learning centers, considering two aspects. The first one, that all the places need to be cleared by UMAS, because there can be some unexploded ordnances or remain of the war. And also that under the rubble there are still bodies. There is a need to give to the Palestinian people in Gaza, to the Gazawi, the possibility to bury their family members and to give enough space also for them to take care of the people who died. And then there is also a need for multi-year annual plans to ensure the transition from the emergency short-term from the humanitarian situation to the medium-long-term response, moving and focusing in moving to the early recovery and the reconstruction. So this is in a nutshell the situation in the West Bank. And I hand over to Patricia for the MHPSS component. I would like just to add one point. When I was in Gaza last year in August, during the operation in Gaza City, I saw, because we were not even able to make the toys entering into Gaza. And I saw several times children playing with human bones, because they didn't have nothing else to play with. Over to you, Patricia, and thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paola, for this important overview that you shared about the situation in State of Palestine, West Bank, East Jerusalem, but also, of course, on the Gaza Strip. I think that what is really important here is that we bear in mind, and Paola has been so often in the Gaza Strip, that there is 1 million children, half of the population, who are in need of mental health, psychosocial support, and Paola and our teams on the ground and Baha have witnessed so many times children who have lost parents, who have lost little brothers and sisters, who have lost a limb, and of course these are children who need an additional support beyond education, and that is very much the sense of this lab that we're having with you today, about how it is absolutely critical to bridge education with mental health and psychosocial support. Beyond the speakers that I introduced, I also wanted to introduce you to Séverine Acerbis, who is the Présidente de la Commission. I don't know exactly how to translate in official terms in English, so I'll say it in French. Présidente de la Commission nationale pour les droits de l'enfant. So thank you very much, Séverine, for being with us and capturing the essence of the conversation. I would like, it's also very important for us, again, to try to give as much possible time for people to ask questions. So I would like to jump directly in the topic. And the first topic that I wanted to talk about was about, here we want to examine how collaborations across education, child protection, but also health, and we haven't mentioned it, but also nutrition, because sometimes school is the only place where a child will have a warm meal. So we'd like to discuss this a little bit further. And I have basically two questions for our speakers online and here on the podium. What has enabled or blocked effective coordination across sectors in crisis? So that's one question. And I have a second one, which is how can nexus-based approaches help bridge humanitarian response with long-term system strengthening? And we have talked a lot about system strengthening and also peace and stability outcomes. So I would like to start with Mrs. Rantia Sabah. I don't know if she managed to join us from Jerusalem. She did. Sabah al-Khair, Rantia. Rantia Sabahi, she's working for Enabel, based in Jerusalem. And so you heard my questions. I would like to start with you.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, and thank you everyone who joined today. Eid Mubarak to everyone who's celebrating. To answer your question, I would start with the importance of coordination. I think in Gaza and in Palestine, coordination is not just a theoretical question. It is a daily survival question. So we're talking about an entire generation. Every youth, adolescent, every teacher is exposed to repeated trauma, displacement, and profound loss. If we respond to this with separate projects, we already have failed. So a youth in Gaza does not experience their life in clusters, they experience it in one reality. There's fear, grief, loss, hope, and a desire to keep going. So when education and health and protection do not speak to each other, that child stands at the center of systems that do not know that they exist. This is why Enable project and program, in Gaza, is being designed around one ecosystem, multiple doors. MHPSS is not a sector in this program, it is the cross-cutting thread. Every activity is built around three questions. Does this build local Palestinian-led capacity? Does this create continuity of care? Does it have a referral pathway that can connect to something else? So in practice, this means when we support Tawjihi students in temporary learning spaces, teachers are trained in social and emotional learning. They learn to recognize distress, respond with warmth, and refer students to points of hope or community-based psychosocial support hubs. So youth and livelihood programs will receive group MHPSS alongside technical training because economic distress and psychological distress feed each other, and we cannot separate them. Students in university will access self-help tools through their e-learning platforms linked to referral pathways when they need more. So the entry is multiple various entry points, and the ecosystem, what we're trying to build, holds them all. What enables coordination is shared entry points and operational trust. So when a teacher knows exactly where to refer students in crisis, and when that student knows that they will actually be received and be accepted and welcomed, and the service that they're seeking is there, the nexus stops being a framework and becomes a referral. So what blocks it is a fragmented funding, a short timeline in long crisis, mental health, a mental health project funded for small amount of time in a crisis now entering its third year is not a system. It is kind of a patch. So this is what we're trying to remove from and aim at a more sustainable view and project and sustainability in general for Palestinians and specifically for Gazans. What we need is an institutional commitment to say that MHPSS must be structural and not an emergency response. And because this question is no longer whether we need to integrate it or not, it is whether we actually have the commitment to sustain it.
Thanks a lot, Rantia. Thanks for this very important. Do we also have Fidias Moufan online? Because if Fidias, if you are online, if you can hear us, I'm just looking at the technical part. We don't have Fidias. Ah, yes. Hi, Fidias. I hope you're doing good. You heard my two of this part, but I just wanted to be a bit more specific with you. And if you have any examples and applications of an integrated model between education, protection, and MHPSS. Can you hear us well? Perhaps you can. No. No. Okay. Phidias, unfortunately, we have this. Now. Give it a try. Phidias, can you say a few words for us just to see if we can hear you? I'm sure the technology will make miracles. So I give it maybe 5 more seconds to Phidias to say just a hi, just hello. Tell us hello, and then we'll move to you. All right, Phidias, we'll try to reconnect a little bit later. And I move to Relinde from Save the Children, and thanks again for joining us. I'd like to ask you, similar topic, but I would say a bit more specific questions about how to integrate MHPSS into education. We discussed with Paola, we discussed before that how important it is, but how can it be done, including with concrete examples if you have.
Good afternoon, everyone. I also had a couple of slides. I don't know if they can be displayed. Great. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much to Educaid and UNICEF for the invitation and for to enable for hosting us today. Actually, enable, it's a nice word because MHPSS, we often see it as an enabler. We know from research that humanitarian action works better if we integrate MHPSS. We heard it before. So yeah, what I briefly wanted to touch upon is actually why is MHPSS so crucial for education? And we heard a lot of examples already. But for children, it affects the brain development and learning ability. It's important for emotions and behavior, broader development, cognitive, social, developmental. So there's a lot to it. At the same time, also when we do not address MHPSS in education, it can also be a risk in those same areas because if children experience adverse events, then this will have more impact. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's a bit small, I'm afraid, but here it demonstrates. Slides may be shared afterwards. It demonstrates again those different areas. So really crucial for a child development, both emotionally, cognitive, etc. And next slide, please. Actually, we were already informed by this overview by Paola. Yeah, this is the famous MHPSS pyramid, but now then linked to education. And again, it shows importantly to make sure that we have multi-layered approaches ranging from basic services, family, community supports to more specialized services. Yeah, next one, please. Because we see a lot of topics coming back. Social and emotional learning, that is actually, it's a form of MHPSS, so it falls under the umbrella. And this is really crucial in all the MHPSS and education programming. So by strengthening protective factors, cell programming can help children not only deal with adverse effects of negative life events, but also increase their concentration, improve behavioral conduct, and contribute to more positive attitudes towards learning. So cell is important because it means that children, whatever context they are in, are ready to learn and have social and emotional knowledge, attitudes and skills necessary to reach their potential and adapt to any changes. And especially in adversity, that is of course crucial. Next one, please. So just to give some examples, this is Team Up. Maybe to just do a very brief exercise with all of you. With the children, we always make firework. So I would like to invite you to join me. Thank you very much for that. little energizer. So Team Up was actually developed by Save the Children, War Child and UNICEF. So talking about collaboration, I think this is a great example. And Team Up is also an MHPSS and cell intervention. It's non-verbal, so it works very well with children from different places, especially in displacement settings. Everyone can join immediately. And you see it here in the pictures. They learn to work together. But they also have some relaxation exercises. So it's really to be more in the body and to be more connected to oneself. And for example, in the Netherlands, we use this a lot in newcomers education. So when there's a lot of different children joining, they can immediately participate in the Team Up sessions. Yeah, so what does it want to achieve? A feeling of safety. We heard that a lot as well. The setting is a safe space. Social connectedness, optimism and self-regulation. So setting boundaries, but also learning about your own emotions and knowing how to deal with those. And if you talk about nexus, as Jonathan mentioned, MHPSS and cell, yeah, they contribute to social connectedness and social reconstruction. So it all links together in all those areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Linda. It's important to be able to focus on the deep, an MHPSS in its core. And I heard in my earpiece that perhaps Fidias has joined us. And now we can perhaps hear him. Fidias, how are you doing? Can you hear us? Hello, can you hear us, Fidias? Yes. Wonderful, and we can hear you. So, Fidias, thank you very much for joining, and apologies for the technical issue. We just wanted to perhaps hear from you if you could share examples of an integrated model where education, protection, and MHPSS are put together. Please, the floor is yours, and hopefully the connection stands. Okay, so perhaps, I think unfortunately that the connection is a bit too limited. We can hear your voice, and that's a real pleasure, but we can only hear bits and pieces. So unfortunately, we'll try a bit later, Fidias, and really apologies for that. Let's move on to the second topic on MHPSS as a core enabler for continuous learning, for the long-term education approach. And yeah, we want to explore how this can be a structural enabler of safe, inclusive and continuous learning, and not necessarily something which is parallel or an add-on, but a full integrated part of education. So I will have again, two questions to frame, and then I will come to the speakers with, I would say, a bit more specific questions. But so one question is, how do education program balance urgent psychosocial needs, so the aspect of emergency when children are deeply traumatized, and that happens too often in crisis, with the need for sustained mental health support. So that's really one aspect. And then the second question is, what happens when MHPSS remains a bit framed as a first response intervention, not something which is conceived in a year-long or multi-year crisis. So these are the two questions, and I suggest we move to Patricia, who's joining us here from UNICEF. What's your global, systemic, I would say, perspective on these?
Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you very much for Educaid and also our colleagues from Belgium to make sure we integrate this discussion when we're talking about education and emergencies, but also from a system strengthening perspective. And let me share with you a very ambitious vision that we have in UNICEF, is that as we ensure children, all children, have access to inclusive and quality education, we also want schools to be safe spaces, and also responsive to the mental health and psychosocial support needs of children, but also their teachers, educators, and if possible, also enlarge to work with caregivers. So very ambitious. And responding to your questions, of course, in emergencies, we need to respond to the immediate needs of children and teachers. Children, as we have heard today, need to feel safe. They need to feel a sense of normality in the middle of chaos. They need to have the support from the teachers. They have to need the support from their peers. They need to have this sense of belonging, and connectedness. But also we know by experience, we are all here in this room, that emergencies are a window of opportunity to make a very system change from policy to different interventions. When children, mental health is supported and the evidence is clear, schools are the better setting for mental health promotion and prevention. And this is not new, because we know that when children feel safe, engaged, and valued, they are able to engage better in their learning, and they feel comfortable in the school, and they feel safe enough also to express themselves and learn and grow. So for us at UNICEF, MHPSS interventions are part of a quality education. And I know I said at the beginning this is ambitious, but we work with the ministries of education, we work with partners, we work with community-based organizations in few key programmatic priorities. We want to increase mental health literacy of children, caregivers, and teachers, and that can be done through the integration of mental health education into the curriculum, but also we hear a lot about integrating social-emotional learning programs into the curriculum. We are also advocating and supporting governments to increase access to mental health services in schools and through schools. And when we're talking about mental health services, as you saw before, we are not only talking about specialized services, but some of the community-based intervention are based, sport-based intervention that can be integrated in the schools for mental health promotion. Integrate mental health as part of emergency.
I'm going to give you this one because we want
We are running
to hear
over
you
energy.
properly. Very good.
So also MHPSS as part of emergency preparedness, and when possible also part of education, budgeting, and planning. So those are the key strategic priorities for education, MHPSS in education from a system strengthening perspective. And it was music to my ears listened from this morning about the importance of working from a system strengthening approach while also responding to the immediate needs of children, making sure that we also take this opportunity to scale up and to increase access to mental health services as part of this holistic intervention. I will stop here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patricia. Thanks a lot. Rantia, if you are with us, can I ask you a bit more on the importance of routines? We know that for children, routines are extremely important, and that's a huge part of the MHPSS, but also on how it's key to give them agency, to give them a role and a voice. So can you expand a little bit on this, Rantia, if you joined us?
Yes.
Very good. I couldn't see you, so I was a bit like worried that we
Yeah.
had lost you. That's here my precaution terms. Please go ahead.
No. So for this, maybe I'm gonna have like a longer introduction, if that's okay, before I jump into the importance of routine. Maybe like a background context of Gaza. When we're talking about education in general, especially for Palestinians, but for children in Gaza who have lived through multiple wars and genocide, there's no clear clean line between crisis and recovery. So it is a continuous experience that children, youth, and even adults have been going through for years now. And that changes everything about how we design our responses and how we see education and MHPSS. I think the center is how we can frame education as a protective social infrastructure. So when we say a student sits in a tent, even with a weak connection, even there's barely any laptops, the routine, the peer beside them, the teacher who shows up and remember their name and ask them about their family. This is the community-based psychosocial support that we're talking about in practice. So education in any form is a safe haven. It brings the sense of safety from a structure and a routine that tells students that there is something predictable in a reality where almost everything else has been disrupted. So the routine here is an anchor in a world of uncertainty for children and for youth. The relationship, even with a teacher who shows up consistently, and it's not incidental, it is reflection of a safe, consistent connection that is one of the stronger mediators for a recovery for children and youth and students, especially in adversity. The sense of agency that comes from studying for your exam, from being able to have some sort of control in an uncontrollable environment, that you can put your own schedule, you can build on something, that you're actually being able to bring back the sense of hope that you have lost for almost 3 years. This is what the routine we're talking about. This is the community-based healing that we're talking about. So MHPSS also changes within these contexts. So the sense of agency that comes from routine, even for teachers, comes from studying again for your exam, from preparing when literally the world is burning around you. This is not just an academic or theoretical, this is practice. And this is exactly what people in Gaza has been doing. It is refusal to let the crisis define their future. And the psychosocial resilience that we're seeing, and it is based on the Palestinian culture of the community, of helping each other, of being there for each other, but also it needs the skills and the spaces to heal. And education and classrooms, tents, any kind of temporary learning spaces can be that kind of space, a healing space for children. Again, this is how important it is to have MHPSS as a core centering education and not just a standalone, even sometimes theoretical intervention or argument. So the risk of keeping MHPSS as secondary to education is not only a well-being risk, it is a learning risk. A chronic stress leads to measurably impaired memory, especially for students or for children, impaired attention, executive functioning. So we cannot really achieve learning outcomes without really addressing the nervous system at first. And the nervous system can be addressed with minimal steps and with limited resources that we just talked about. And the grief in Gaza goes deeper than just losing a classroom. It does extend to grieving dreams, grieving goals, grieving the possibility about planning a future. When mental health here, mental health support and services, when they are kept separate from education, we accidentally tell students that learning and healing are two different things, and they're not. It is our responsibility, and we need to take accountability and a commitment to showcase the students and the teachers that this is our responsibility to design systems that know that it's not two separate things, that the education and the classroom is built on healing. And this is what we're trying to aim for. So I hope I answered your question, Jonathan. Thank you.
You did. Thanks a lot, Rantia. That's also very, very impactful. Rolinde, there is one big element of MHPSS, it's the teachers. And the teachers themselves in crisis and conflicts are exposed to a very high level of violence. So what is at stake and what can be done with the teachers to integrate this even more in education?
Thank you, Jonathan. And may I go back to slide deck, please? Yes, very much so. So we talked also about schools as a community, really. Parents come there, teachers, children, and it's in the benefit of all to have a safe place, a supportive environment. Yeah, one further, I think. Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So yeah, actually, it's in humanitarian work in general, but also for teachers for sure to have attention for staff well-being, and to make sure that teachers also know how to take care of themselves, of each other, but that they're also capacitated with skills for that. That they have PFA skills, psychological first aid. So that they really are also encouraged and mentored to take on this role of being a supportive teacher. So yeah, it takes a village to raise a child, and actually a school is also really like that. So what I wanted to briefly share was an example again, because I think that it always gives some image to it. This is HEART, what you see here, healing and education through the arts. It's also a psychosocial intervention and can be very well implemented at schools, at child-friendly spaces. And it basically uses art in all its forms, so painting, drawing, music, as a starter for conversations for children, for adults, if they want to. It's very open, and it also has some meditation, relaxation exercises. And what we heard from the countries where we work is actually an approach like this really changed the relationship between teachers and students. They built trust, but they also got to know each other in a very different way. And for teachers and both children, it was great to have something that is not judged, not graded. It's something to work on and discuss together. Yeah, and contributes to a safe environment at school. And maybe nice if we talk about system change. For example, sadly, Save the Children office in Georgia had to close. But the Ministry of Education took on this approach in the curriculum for all schools. We heard some examples like this before today, and I think this is really helpful if we talk about sustainability. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Relinde. It's time also to move now on the third topic, which I think is also important in line of what was discussed before, between, there is an action that is done at tactical level on the spot, but it's also important to be strategic. And to be strategic, we need to address how MHPSS is integrated into education systems. So I would like the colleagues here to tell us about experiences on how integrating MHPSS into education systems went well or didn't go well. And I would like to start with you, Rantia, if you can give us some insights on your experience on that, on the integration in education systems of MHPSS.
Yes. Can you hear me well? Because I have an echo.
Very well. Extremely
okay.
well.
Perfect. So I'm going to talk more about the Enables project in Gaza Crisis Response Program. So what we're planning, the current and the future. I'm going to start with saying that the main idea that we're designing in Gaza starts from one honest acknowledgement that in a prolonged crisis, we cannot design as if emergency response, healing, and recovery happens in a separate phases. So in more honest phrase, you cannot tell a Palestinian child, a student, or youth that first will help you survive, then once things calm down, will help you heal, and then after you heal, will help you learn. That doesn't make any sense. For us, we're trying to integrate it all at once and parallelly and systematically as we are hoping, but also from Palestinians to Palestinians, so it can be impactful. So what we are doing for Palestinian youth who have lived multiple cycles of war and violence, there is no such line, as we said. So we're trying to have the healing and learning to be parallel. And the grief in Gaza goes beyond just losing a classroom, as we said. It grieves the dreams and the goals and the possibility to plan a future. Our role in Enable and every program that we're designing is to create these conditions that makes learning and recovery possible together. So our anchor is that our MHPSS project is based on, well, now it's a pilot, so we're hoping that we can extend it. It's called Points of Hope model, implemented with our partner, Gaza Community Mental Health. These Points of Hope are community-based safe spaces, youth-friendly, peer-led. So they're young people ages from 15 till 29 can come in with main 4 corners implemented in each hub. They can join a group session, a group therapy session, do something creative, art therapy, drama therapy, talk about what they're carrying, what kind of support they need, peer-led group therapy even. And if they need more specialized services, they can get referred to a mental health professionals. So it's not a clinic, it's not a classroom, it's a specialized community space that holds both. It's run by professionals, of course, and it's community to community, peer to peer. So, and we're hoping that when fixed locations become more stable, we'll have more expanded points of hope. But if not, we can also think about mobile, so we can find the people where they are. So we're thinking as well that the points of hope can be a bridge and not only just support spaces, but only a bridge back into learning. A student can be referred from a learning space to points of hope when they need the support. And a young person supported through points of hope can be helped through reconnecting to education. So building on this, this is what exactly Enable is planning, is to connect these hubs intentionally and specifically and tailored to everyone's needs. So we're also working for different things, for Tawjihi, for medical students, professors. So for Tawjihi students, and anyone who doesn't know what Tawjihi is, it's a standardized national exam that students on their 12th year, they take it so they can graduate. So for the Tawjihi students, we're designing a hybrid model, virtual classes through platforms that connect West Bank teachers with students in Gaza, and in-person study groups in temporary learning spaces. Of course, teachers will be trained in social and emotional learning and MHPSS basic skills. So we are supporting Tawjihi students to recognize that there is still hope, but also for the teachers to be able to have the skills to have like an early intervention kind of maybe path where they can recognize the stress, respond without judgment, and refer students to professionals. But also mainly because the Tawjihi students in Gaza are just sitting for that exam after everything that they have lived through. It goes beyond just an academic achievement. It's a refusal to let what happened define their future. For the second part, it's the students in university. As we said, points of hope are going to be tailored for needs. One is for medical students and for the teachers, because they are the base and the infrastructure for Gaza. So we're developing a crisis-adapted digital education model where psychosocial self-help tools will be embedded directly into e-learning platforms. We are also working to integrate psychoeducation. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Sorry. Sorry. Yep. So we're also working to integrate psychoeducation and trauma models into curriculums so that even professionals are supporting today to understand that it's not just the clinical side, that the human side of mental health matters. And the vision is one connected MHPSS ecosystem. Regardless of which door we're going to knock, there has to be a door for each young person to enter. A learning space, a university, a livelihood program that they will encounter support that is consistent, trusted, connected to everything else. Not just a different project each time, like one ecosystem and multiple doors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rantia. I would like to ask Relinde and Patricia very quickly if you also have suggestions on how to embed MHPSS across system components from education. Perhaps Patricia first and then Relinde.
Okay, I have also a presentation, if you can please help me with the presentation, but just also if I can pick up from the last question, if you
Yes.
allow me, you ask what is working well, and I have been working on the space for a few years, and I don't know if you agree, but recently, especially after COVID, I see that we are integrating MHPSS in discussions like this in forums. We are seeing increased evidence about mental health across sectors. We also understand mental health as a cross-sectoral issue, with each sector with a specific responsibility and responding to the diversity of children and mental health needs. We see more youth engagement in developing policies. We see integration in national. There's a still long way to go, but there's also improvement. There's policies that integrate child and adolescent mental health across sectors. We see also a lot of interventions that have been developed over the past year, like Team Up. I will show another one. So there is progress, I think. And we have, if you can put the slides, please, if it is possible. I can show you an example of also cross-sectoral and cross-agency collaboration, and I think that responds to the question we had before about what can we do and prioritize with, do better with less. So there is a new guidance. Next, please. Sorry, I'm just trying to rush. Next. Yeah, this one. We have the MHPSS minimum service package that was developed by different agencies that actually, give us the clear 22 activities like the minimum service package that should be integrated in emergency response, not only for education, but for child protection, for GBV, etc. Next, please. So another example of
Yes.
advancement in the field. And I just want to focus specifically on the MHPSS activities, priorities in the education sector. First of all, including MHPSS in education assessment. Quick example, in Poland, they were receiving refugees from Ukraine, and UNICEF, of course, with the Ministry of Education and other partners, integrated some questions for teachers to understand what were their needs in terms of capacity to receive learners from Ukraine in their classrooms. And based on this initial assessment, a digital curriculum for teachers was developed. So they were gaining the skills to welcome children from Ukraine in the schools, and also responding to both the learning and mental health needs in the classrooms. Coordination, I think we mentioned before. Sometimes we also forget about the different needs according to the age of the children. So it is very important to integrate mental health intervention for caregivers when we are working on early childhood education. So how can we target the youngest children with appropriate interventions? We have, as I mentioned before, UNICEF and other partners develop different global goods that are open source, and we have one specific that is called Caring for the Caregivers, that, in which provide guidance for first responders to work with parents and how to, for them to take care of their mental health, and how to also support the mental health of the youngest children. We have different interventions to provide mental health interventions in schools, like Team Up, to name a few. We need to make sure that interventions in schools are also inclusive, and we respond to the learning needs of those children that already have a mental health condition previous to the emergency or as a result of the emergency. I forgot to mention before, but of course the workforce development. How can we provide helping skills or training to increase or strengthening the helping skills of teachers, but at the same time, and this is also some improvement I have seen in our space, how we can take care of the first responders' mental health, including teachers. Schools are also like the key platform to pass or communicate, they provide information for caregivers about the impact that the emergencies can have on themselves, on the children, to normalize some of the normal reactions to very stressful and abnormal situation, and also to have clear information about when and where to seek for help if that's needed. And of course, strengthening this referral system and coordination across the different sectors. So those are the key essential services that can be integrated in schools, and this is not like the only role of education. Of course, this is done in coordination with other sectors and different agencies working together. Next, please. I don't even have. So this is just to show you, you know, this is the Caring for the Caregiver package that is available online. Next, please. Play and Heal, something intervention for 6 to 12 years that has been implemented in the MENA region in schools. Next, please. Also available for anyone. Can you move to the next, please? And this Hosh El Hal, I hope that I pronounce well, that it's specifically for supporting teacher well-being. Next, please. Next, please. There is just to say that there are many resources and interventions out there to support the integration of MHPSS in schools. You can see and you can scan here if you want to know more. This is a study UNICEF and another partner produced a few years ago about the cost of inaction and the cost-benefit analysis of integrating MHPSS in schools in emergency settings. Over.
Thanks a lot, Patricia. I mean, being strategic requires, you know, there is a lot of element that needs to be streamlined, and it's really important that we highlight this. Relinde, 1 minute. I would like you to try to just in 1 or maximum 2 minutes, if you can link, you know, the important strategic role of Ministry of Education in the rollout of MHPSS overall.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. I will be fast. Yes, I think, again, if schools and ministries work together to add elements to the curriculum, that's really helpful. Just wanted to share a very brief, nice example of collaboration again. It's called I Support My Friends, Psychological First Aid for Children and Adolescents. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's even appearing. Thank you so much. So when this is part of the culture at school, you know, you can foster this social climate in the school. So both with, again, teachers, parents, but also amongst peers. And if you talk about linking it to the ministry, to the system, for example, in Japan, this has been introduced with the ministry at many schools, also as a form of preparedness. So with the earthquake risks, the tsunami. So it's really a matter of providing everyone in the school with certain skills and knowledge to be able to support each other and themselves. Was that too?
That was absolutely perfect, but I didn't count, you know. Okay. I was not monitoring. Thank you very much. Thank you. A big round of applause to our speakers. And once again, I am so sorry that we couldn't establish the connection. That also shows how it can be extremely challenging to join us online, but also to learn online. So very sorry for SAPI. Before we conclude, I would like just to ask, and that's a perfect transition since we're talking about system building and the work with Ministry of Education. So I would like to have Dr. Hassaf perhaps sharing a few closing words with us about, you know, the importance of system building and integrations of MHPSS. Don't move. I'm just bringing you the microphone. If you want to share some thoughts and some key takeaways with us before we close.
Thank you, and thanks for the speakers. They talked all about what we think and what we try to implement. So it's the one approach, whole approach. So you cannot separate the healing, psychosocial from education, and what's our colleague from Jerusalem mentioned, it doesn't work for the Palestinian. But to work on the system, which we have been talking from the morning, is really to go back to the most important element of the education, which is the teacher. How we can empower teacher within the curriculum, and we call the teacher in Palestine the moving or the life curriculum. So empowering the teacher with those type of activity, training on psychosocial, first to support themselves, because they face the trauma that everyone faces, and then how they can assist and help their students to get out from the trauma so that they can really be able to focus more on the education. Now, in the case of Gaza, which is 3 years, case of, for example, DRC, we also this morning had from Ukraine, those crises which takes long time. It needs more strategic actions. It needs more coordination with the different partners so that not each and every partner will go to implement his own theory or believe in how to support the students and the teachers. You have to have one plan. Everyone should put his effort and the resources in this, on implementing that plan so that the effectiveness of implementation will be much higher. And this is the approach we took at the Ministry of Education, is one approach, coordination, empowering the system by empowering the teachers and the counselors.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your interventions. I don't know if we don't have really time for questions. I think that the other session is going to join us. And then we will have maybe 2 minutes or 2 questions. If anyone has questions for our speakers here or for anyone. Very good. So it's been very intense, I assume. So perhaps, I guess that the colleagues from the other lab will join us, and then we will have the rapporteurs updating us on the key takeaways and recommendations. So I suggest to close for now and to reconvene in 5 minutes, just the time to get a glass of water and then to reconvene. Oh, please.
One firework?
Yeah, and one firework before the water. Merci, excellent idea. Thank you.